Please put your hand up if you're the sort of person who volunteers in any way they can when assisting with an event. Okay, and keep your hand up if helping out at that event was cleaning out every one of the toilets after the event had finished. Okay, so there's a few hands went down in the front here. But I'm here to tell you why putting your hand up can make a big difference in your life. My idea is that by putting your hand up, you can inspire great change in your life. Let me explain how it changed my life. As a young Australian, I participated in many sports, including cricket, swimming, Australian rules football, and basketball. Though I enjoyed these sports immensely, I was never very good at them, and I was always very jealous of the more athletically gifted children who always got their name in the local paper. When I was 11, our local cricket club asked for a volunteer to do a write-up of the junior cricket competition. I put my hand up, and by doing so, it gained me valuable skills and experience that I otherwise would not have got if I didn't volunteer. Additionally, it also meant each week, whether we won, drew, or lost, I got my name in the local paper. Sometimes, by doing something that benefits the community, you can also benefit yourself as well. Let's fast forward to 2014 when I moved to Krakow. I love stand-up comedy and was looking for locally organised stand-up comedy events, but nothing existed. Stand-up comedy is one of the most successful comedy formats in the world and dates back to 400 BC in Greece, and yet there was nothing in Krakow. In February 2015, I noticed a Facebook post for the first ever open mic stand-up comedy event in English. Jim Williams from Wroclaw, a former TEDxKazimierz speaker, was coming to Krakow, especially to try and get things set up, and had no local support as far as I could tell. Jim was looking for performers. I put my hand up, not only because I wanted to test myself by being on stage, but also because I knew that if I didn't go along and perform, the event might not happen. Performing stand-up comedy is one of the most daunting experiences that anybody can do. Why? If you don't like my TEDx talk right now, I might find out later on. If you don't like my stand-up comedy, I find out every few seconds in real time when nobody laughs at my jokes. If that pause felt awkward, just imagine how much worse that would have been if that was a joke that failed. Not good for you, and horrible for me. Cool. Relevant topic. I'll never forget how nervous I was the first time I was on stage and how much I was shaking during the performance. Likewise, I'll never forget the rush of adrenaline I got when I stepped off stage. Performing stand-up comedy is like skydiving without a parachute and relying on the audience to have a spare one on hand to provide you with during the fall. And much like skydiving, I wanted to do it again to get that same rush of adrenaline. Derek Carreview, the host of the open mic night that evening, liked what I did enough and invited me to perform at his next show as the MC, or the Master of Ceremonies. As the MC, my role was to introduce the show's comedians, as well as telling about 7 minutes worth of jokes myself. It was a disaster, and remains my worst ever performance. The jokes weren't funny, the introductions were jumbled, and the crowd just stared back at me. Imagine how you'd feel. I wanted to dig a hole and bury myself. Fortunately, for my first night as MC, no video footage of this night exists. And everybody is long since forgotten. Everybody except for me. Every performer has stories of bad performances. It's inevitable. But the highs outweigh the lows. Being in a room where everybody is laughing at the same shared experience is a great feeling. And being the person who provides that experience is richly rewarding. And much like sex, stand-up comedy is much better when somebody else is involved. By March 2016, I felt comfortable performing on stage, but was lacking the opportunity for performance time. How was I going to get better and improve by only having 5 minutes a month on stage at an open mic event? With myself and 2 other local comedians, we decided we needed to take a leadership role in addressing this issue, and Krakow Standup Comedy was formed. We decided on 2 formats. First, an open mic where anybody can come and perform for a maximum of 5 minutes. We even gave them a free beer as well. For the crowd, entrance was free, but importantly, there was no guarantee of quality at the performances. The second format involved bringing an established comedian, a headliner, to Krakow to perform, with local acts providing support as well. It was here we encountered a classic chicken and egg problem. Audiences wouldn't come to headline shows unless we had quality performers. And of course, quality performers wouldn't come to Krakow unless we had an audience. Those first few shows were tough. We weren't very good, and nobody knew who we were. We had to think laterally. Instead of paying comedians based on the number of tickets sold, we paid them a minimum guarantee out of our own pocket to ensure that they would continue to return to Krakow and perform for small audiences in those early days. As such, we had quality comedians coming to Krakow to perform for an audience of as few as 7 people. It wasn't great, but it was a start. Since then, we've grown. I put that together myself as well. Since then, we've grown. In addition to those first 4 performers, we've hosted a number of other quality comedians, including TEDxKazimierz speakers Jim Williams, Michał Skubera, and Tomek Biskup. Additionally, we've been able to give the stage to local performers who have grown enormously over the course of the last 12 months. Now, instead of performing for an audience of as few as 7 people, comedians are performing for an audience of 50 or 60 people, or in the case of the open mic events, up to 100. Almost accidentally, as a desire of our want to get stage time, we'd created a community around Krakow Standup Comedy. My next put your hand up moment is currently a work in progress. Ever since I moved to Krakow, there's been talk of organising a Krakow Fringe Festival, but nobody put up their hand to do it. So I did. This time, the objective wasn't to give myself stage time, but to bring a world-class culture and arts festival to Krakow. Additionally, I wanted to see if what we'd done with Krakow Standup Comedy would work on a bigger scale. So what is a Fringe Festival, some of you might ask? The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the world's largest arts and culture festival and runs for 25 days, featuring over 50,000 performances from over 3,200 performers across 294 venues, as well as generating £313 million for the local economy. But Edinburgh has a 70-year head start on us. We're aiming to do 10% of that inside the next 5 years, which would be 500 performances from 300 performers across 29.4 venues. For the moment, we're starting with 49 performances from 14 performers across 4 venues over 4 days. Why did I decide to put up my hand when I could have just continued going step by step doing Krakow stand-up comedy with the rest of the crew? Potentially, I'd be dedicating hundreds of hours and a large portion of the next year to something that might not work out. But I decided to go for it. I put up my hand. Krakow is one of Europe's major tourist destinations and has an enormous potential Polish and international audience for a globally successful entertainment format such as stand-up comedy. Polish language stand-up comedy is well established and English language is growing. My idea was to bring the Krakow Fringe Festival here and help to grow the format exponentially over the course of the next few years. If you put up your hand and oversubscribe yourself, it might end in disaster. But to me, the biggest disaster would be not putting up my hand to bring a world-class arts and culture festival to Krakow when nobody else was doing it. That would be the bigger disaster. My question to you is, what can you do that will benefit not only yourself, but also your community as a whole? What will inspire you to put up your hand? Thank you.